Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another week of Raw Living Radio. We are so happy that you are listening, and we feel you out there. We love you and we appreciate you. Thanks for coming and getting informed and educated with us every week. This is the highlight of our week and such a fulfilling time. And today is an interesting interview. We are not with Hava Derby today because I am actually on site live at the Lucidity Festival, and Hava is working with Pure Living Expo in New Mexico right now with our founder, Laura Fox. So I am here at Lucidity, and I am so excited to be able to bring to you an amazing songstress and musician, talented artist who is just so full of heart. When you hear her music, you will know what I mean, and it will hook you, I promise. So let me introduce Ayla Nereo, who is a singer-songwriter whose voice hits straight to the heart through an array of loop pedals, guitar, kalimba, piano, and percussion. She weaves magic into each live performance. Recently, Ayla has been on tour both with Polish Ambassador as one half of Wildlight and also solo. And they have been bringing awareness to festivals all around about permaculture and how to take action with permaculture and just really get involved. So they've been informing, igniting, and just creating something really organic and cool, and bringing this aspect to the festival scene that so many people are interested in. I've seen here at the Lucidity Fest since I've been here this weekend, the permaculture action tent is always full. It's a wonderful thing to see so many people interested. So without any further ado, I would love to introduce you to Ayla Nereo. Ayla, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here.
So how did you get involved in singing and songwriting, first of all?
Well, I really started when I was a kid. I was playing piano and listening to classical music, and just listening to a lot of different sounds and trying to play them on the piano, but I wouldn't say I wrote songs much at all. I actually wanted to be a filmmaker when I was 12. I was pretty solid in that. And then in college I started learning guitar, and something kind of cracked open, and songs started coming through in my last year of college.
Wow.
And so, over the course of just one song after another, and this wonderful house, a co-op that I lived in on campus, and all the housemates asking me to share a song at different gatherings, it just slowly got pulled out of me because I was really shy and I really was terrified of singing for my whole life. It was a slow process. There was a lot of learning, of overcoming a lot of fear around it. But
Wow, so you went from having, that fear of having your voice heard, basically, to performing on stage at huge festivals and having people ask for your voice to be heard. And was there a kind of a turning point there for you?
Yeah, there was. I think I performed in a group with my brother, actually. We did folk music and we did harmonies together, and we performed all around, the state, all around the country, and our group Beat Beat Whisper was getting some traction, but I was also still kind of going through the fear of the stage. And I actually made a decision at one point that I was just going to be a recording artist and give up performing because I was so terrified of being on stage. And then there was one tour I did solo. I finally felt that the music really wanted me to try some of the solo songs that weren't getting airplay in the band with my brother. And so I did a whole tour with a friend, Michael Zellig's, up the coast. And on that tour, it just became really clear to me that this was what I was on the planet to do, and that if I didn't do it now, that when else was I gonna do it? And so I made a commitment on that tour that I was gonna do music and nothing else. And on that tour I really did a lot of learning around the energetics of performing and realizing that there's no separation. Even though there's a stage and there's a perceived separation, that really the best thing I can do is just remember that we are all made of the same molecules, and that there's not a difference between me and that person and that person. And then that just started to break down. The separation started to break down, and this joy came in, and I realized that what we give out it rides on a frequency. So if I'm in gratitude when I sing songs, the songs hit with gratitude as the frequency. And if I'm in fear, or what do they think of me when the songs come out of my mouth, then that's the frequency that it rides on. And so it was really very simple. And once I kind of got that and played with that for a while, I realized how fun performing is, what a delight it is, what a joy. And it's my favorite thing now.
Wow. So really just stepping in and trusting and, following that intuition and that inner guidance allowed you to have the experiences you needed and the contrast that you needed to that, for that knowing to come up, from within you, that, hey, if I'm afraid when I do this, that's what I'm delivering to people. But if I am in joy and in gratitude and I'm coming from my heart and just, shining my light and being happy to come and do this, then that's what they receive. And so you give permission to other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, and that permission was given to me. I would witness people that were just being themselves, and there was they weren't trying to be anything else. And it was like, oh, what a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And then at some point, it clicked in, oh, that's my job. My job is just to be myself so that I can give everyone permission and to share as much of that as possible, not try to be anything that I'm not. And what a relief. I just get to go on stage and be myself.
Wow.
It's really not... It's so easy to create these things into like a big deal, or really take them seriously, or take ourselves really seriously. And so it's refreshing to remember that we're just supposed to be ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's the whole world is our stage, and so you were brought into that knowing through your stage experience, but you're giving permission to everybody to use the world as their stage and to do the same thing, show up and be yourself, however it is you're guided, and just trust in that and go with that.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing that I think a lot more and more people are awakening, to that kind of a realization, and it's young and old, because so many people have been, indoctrinated basically to be a certain way. Pretty much anybody who's been in the public school system has had to, experience that from, one aspect or another. But it's almost cool, because without that contrast, we can't really appreciate it and drop in.
Yeah. And I definitely, I wouldn't say I've mastered that by any chance. In the goal of full transparency, I have so many waves still of needing to just remember that, to let it go, to not take myself seriously, to not see it as like, it's very, this has been really up recently for me too, is just like, as the stages get bigger and as the audiences get bigger, the allure of the ego gets stronger, and it kind of like can like really want to like get fed on that stuff. And so to just like keep it really real, and to really to not get into that game, but to create a new game where it's really meeting everyone and really being just myself, and not trying to project anything that's fake, or that's anything other than just what I'm experiencing, which is a lot of things at every moment.
Well, the ego tends to want to control, which of course it really can't, because it's mind associated, and the mind is our servant. And so, like you said, you just keep on remembering to be authentic and come from your heart. And yeah, that's amazing. And it's wonderful to hear that you're, because like you said, as things get bigger and things grow, that's going to be how you can, really continue to bring that message through your music and really, touch people's hearts. Because the minute that, somebody gets real big, and then you can kind of feel that shift in their music. I'm sure we've all heard it, where it's like, whoa, that first album was so wonderful. What happened?
Right.
And they're no longer, being their true authentic self. They've been swayed, or, somebody gave them some really great ideas, and they didn't intentionally disconnect from, their fans, but in a way that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, it's subtle. It's subtle, but very dramatic at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, as far as when you write and when you sing and when you share with people, Do you have a particular intention? I mean, I know you said that you notice the difference when you're in gratitude that you're sending that frequency out to be received. Is there also like another sort of an overall intention that you have with your music when you perform, and anything that you're, really intentionally sharing with people that's more kind of like the grounding of it all?
Yeah, I would say the core intention that holds the songs as they come and also holds the performances is that I just ask to be a good vessel. I just ask to be a really good listener, and that I can just be of service to this music. And so that applies to the songs that come in, and just asking to, to be open enough to hear them with accuracy, and then to be a good enough listener to be able to like put them down in words and images and sounds that will be as close to an approximation to the true thing that they're coming from as possible. And then for performing too, before I get on stage, I always do a short prayer and just a meditation, just tuning into the stars, tuning into the earth, and just asking to just be a really good listener and a really good vessel for whatever needs to happen, because I never know. I've done so many shows at this point where, the whole audience might seem like this or that, or like, I don't know, I might have an idea of like, oh, that show didn't go as well, or I didn't do this and that, and then I'll find out later that it profoundly shifted one person, and that they went on to do all these things. And so it's like, it's not my job to like decide or even guess what the impact's going to be, but it is my job to step aside the ego as much as possible, and then step on stage to just channel whatever needs to come through. And I never know. And that even like, my loop pedal sometimes will glitch, or something mechanical will happen, and even that can be part of the medicine. Sometimes people will be like, wow, that point where it all messed up and then you started singing about how it was messing up, that was really like cool. I didn't know people could mess up and still have fun. And it's like anything could be medicine, and as long as I try to not be in the way, the ego, that my personality self, mind self is not in the way, then anything can happen, and it can get into its highest potential, because really I don't know the highest potential. So yeah, that is a very profound intention. And it's much deeper than what I was even expecting. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I am a fan of, I have not heard a lot of your music, but a few songs for sure. And the Oh Love song that was put out last year for another festival. And I play that song for people, and they're like, I want to hear that again. Where do I get that? And it really hits home. So it's definitely being felt. I can tell you that much. Do you work with like the 432 hertz or anything like that as far as the actual music coming through? I haven't actually been working with it. It's interesting because you're the third or fourth person this month that's been asking about that. I recently I got a guitar tuner that I can choose what frequency it's tuning to.
Oh, nice.
So I recently did a show that was tuned, and actually a woman came up at the end and asked, was that 432? So I'm playing with it. I'm playing around with it. It's tricky because I've started playing with a band, and the keyboard can't get tuned. That's the only instrument that can't get tuned to 432. So I think the piano has something to do with why 440 even exists, actually, or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But I love the piano. So I'm figuring it out, because it would be really amazing to tune to that frequency. But it seems like so far the message is coming through.
Yeah, no matter what. Exactly. Yeah. And how did you get involved in Lucidity Festival, and how many times have you performed here?
0. This is my first Lucidity.
Yay!
Yeah. I had heard about it last year. It was the first time I heard about it, but I think it was already, booking had happened and whatnot, and so when they asked me to perform this year, I was pretty excited, because I've heard really beautiful things about just the intention and the sustainability piece that exists here. And
Yes. Yeah, that's been very impressive. I've, really been taking away a lot from it. I've even sat into some of the workshops. I guess speaking about sustainability, let's talk a little bit about that. So you just came off of a tour in the fall where you were doing a solo tour as well as touring with the Polish ambassador as half of Wildlight, which is the Olav song that I love so much. And how did that go? And tell us a little bit about it. Like, where were you? Were you all over the United States? And, was it smaller communities? Give us a hint of this creation and kind of how it started and where it's been going and maybe what you envisioned and what really happened.
Okay. Well, it was definitely the brainchild of David, the Polish ambassador, who's also my partner. And so he had this vision, and then we all kind of hopped on board, and we did a Kickstarter to raise the funds to bring a permaculture crew, a bunch of folks who were going to organize. They have a really amazing, knowledge body of permaculture themselves, but their job for the whole tour was to travel with us and organize these action days. So every city we went to 33 cities. We had 33 shows in the course of 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it was full on. It was about we averaged about 6 shows a week. So we had one day off usually.
Wow.
And
that service.
it was a haul. It was good. It was good to feel that experience. I don't know if we'll do that intensity again, but it was good. So every show we did, we had an action day the next day in that town. And so basically the permaculture action crew that came with us was connecting with people who were running local gardens, school gardens, food forests, seed saving, natural building projects, like anything that fit into this umbrella that we were using called permaculture. We could have used a different term, but we wanted to raise awareness to what permaculture is. It's many things, but just the word, is helpful. And so we connected with local people in each area, and then they would, bring us in on, whatever was already existing there, because we didn't want to start new projects. We wanted to actually direct our fans to work in things that already exist in each city. So, in Oakland, 300 people came out after our show and came to the Gill Tract farm.
Wow.
In Albany, that is a piece of land. It has an amazing story. They just made a film about it, which I did a song for. It's called "Occupy the Farm."
Oh yeah, I saw that preview. That looks like really amazing. When is that coming out?
It's already out.
Oh
yeah,
yay!
It's being shown around the country. Yeah, so that documents that whole story of how they gained land and now they're farming there and they're giving food away to the community. And so we went there. We did our action day there to support that and did a lot of, mulching and tilling and planting food and planting a medicinal spiral garden. And every action day was so different, supporting whatever was already happening in different spots. And
with the Occupy the Farm one, that was a bit of, a battle, right?
Yeah, it was it was during the Occupy movement, and a bunch of people went, and this piece of land was zoned to be for agricultural use, and they were trying to build condominiums and Whole Foods on it. And so 2,000 people went out that were from the community and went out there and started farming on it, and they ended up camping out there for a while to protect it, and then they left and they turned off the water, so they started carting in water by hand. It's a really amazing documentary that shows it. And then eventually the university kind of bowed to them and gave them the right to have that plot, that I think it's an acre or half an acre.
Wow.
And they're growing so much food for free for everyone. They're not selling any of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is the future, everybody. Right. Wow, I'm gonna get choked up.
It's really moving. It's really incredible. So, that's the vision, right? That is the future, and that's why we did the permaculture tour, is because it's like, okay, this is what we can do with all this energy. There's so much energy that comes out for a music concert. So now everyone, tomorrow, let's all hang out and plant food for each other. And it was really an enlightening tour in so many ways, because so many people were just like blown away by it. And just, I've had I don't even know how many people have come up to me at festivals since then and said, since that tour, I have gotten my PDC and I didn't even know what permaculture was before then. You know, people are like, some people have found their passion through that, you know, and in a way, it's in all of us to have that passion, because it's our core is to be connected to the earth and to grow our own food. Yeah. And it's the biggest revolutionary move we can possibly make is to grow our own food.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, young people, I mean, most everybody, when they begin to connect a little bit with, you know, who they are and with Mama Gaia and with, you know, Source, they realize, you know, how natural it is to actually have that kind of a relationship with your food. And it feels like for a long time, you know, there's been all this interest in a lot of people who really want to get involved, but it seems like the only way to get involved is to maybe start your own like raw vegan company, or to, you know, and always sourcing things basically, or to, you know, get into agriculture. And a lot of people are not into agriculture. Yeah. They want to actually do, you know, real farming. Right. So how did you and David, like, what turned you onto that? And did you have that already when you were growing up in your life, or was it something that you came to later on?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely something I grew up with. I grew up out in the country in Sonoma County. My mom's a gardener and an artist, and my dad has his own business and in wood crafting. He does fine stair building, and we lived so close to the land for my whole childhood. And not that my parents knew really much about permaculture per se, but just an inherent love of the land. And my mom actually, my mom and dad decided to homeschool my brother and I. So we were very much, you know, our lessons were outside. Our lessons were like learning with nature and on trips. You know, it was all integrated into what was relevant for the moment that we were actually living, and what the learning was there. And so that's part of permaculture too, is just paying attention and listening and observing, and then processing it and sharing that and working with it and creating new ideas out of it. And I think that was very inherent. And so in that sense, my parents are full-on permaculture experts.
And to be clear, what you're saying is versus looking at some land and going, or, you know, versus having an idea, then going to find the land, then trying to do it, instead get connected with the land and let it tell you what needs to be done, you know, and let it show you what needs to be used and how you can do it and keep it sustainable.
Yeah, the difference between what does the land want to be and how can I help that so that it'll be as vibrant as possible for both the land and I living here, versus what do I want the land to do for me? You know, it's that difference.
Right. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then what about David? Because you said it was like his idea, and you came on board and said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So he definitely grew up in a different world. He grew up in Pennsylvania, and kind of like, you know, I would say what's considered a mainstream, you know, kind of childhood and adulthood, and in that way it's also perfect, you know, because it's just good to know, like, I'm really glad that I stopped homeschooling and went to high school, you know, like, so that we both have these perspectives that are accurate for where other people are. We're not just coming out of a bubble of our own ideas. And so he started just going down a path. This is before we even met. He started going down a path of really soul seeking and meditation, and really starting to tune in more with nature, and then finding a deep love of nature. And you know, shortly after we met, I passed him the book Fifth Sacred Thing by Starhawk, and that kind of blew his world. And then we've been reading the Anastasia books, which are blowing our world open, and just really these guideposts, these people who are really holding a vision and sharing, you know, helping us build our vision of what's possible, and how we've been pretty short-sighted and pretty narrow-sighted as a culture, just as a world culture. There's been a lot of short-sightedness, and really when we start to expand it, it's like, wow, how much is possible. It's so incredible. We could be feeding every single person on this planet and easily.
Yeah.
Easily. And everyone could have enough water, and everyone could be happy, and we would have no need of war. But that's pretty radical for a lot of people, because we've gotten pretty used to a lot of these ideas of like money existing and war existing, and definitely it's not as simple as all that, because there's a lot of entrenched things that we need to work through. But just what's possible, I think that's such a key part of really stepping into this reality, is to believe it without a doubt, to believe it like it's not even hope anymore, because I just know that that's happening.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Amazing. Yeah. Well, it also opens things up in a different way. I think that there's also, like even just in the word permaculture, people will assume there's some sort of permanence, and that's not necessarily it. It's more about becoming sustainable and having this relationship, so that as time goes by, whatever changes need to happen don't end it all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really, I was actually just having a moment too of thinking the relationship with why people like festivals so much. And I feel like, it's something you said too, of like just that inherent connection to the earth. And it's kind of interesting that everyone lives this life out there, and they're kind of like wishing that they didn't have to go to their job, and all these comforts are around them. But then they really want to come to a festival where they're sleeping in a tent, and they're walking around barefoot on the earth, and they're dancing, and they're under the trees, and it's interesting that this is the thing that is so desirable, and we haven't quite, as a larger body of humans, we haven't quite made that connection of what is the root that we're really loving about this, and how can we make that our lives. Because David and I have, last year bought a piece of land out in Nevada City, and now we walk around barefoot and we dance and we're under the trees. And so festivals are, we love coming and sharing the music, but it doesn't have the magic that it used to. Not that it doesn't have magic, because it's definitely a specific kind of magic, but we've integrated that into our reality. And even like someone who's not able to buy land, to just, there's so many ways to integrate it into our day-to-day reality. And I think part of the reason that the world exists the way it does is because we're all going along with it. And if we all just chose, now I'm going to live the reality I want, and I wear these clothes at festivals, so I'm going to just start dressing like this. And I like walking around barefoot, so I'm just going to start walking around barefoot a little more often. And there's a park there, so I'm going to go to that park every day to get my dose of nature. And just, who knows what the universe will start sending into our lives, just because we're committing to creating a world that we actually want to live just for ourselves. So much of it is that personal responsibility.
Yeah, it's almost in a strange way, just because of, all of the major shifts, especially that happened in this country, going back to like the 1700s or whatever, and moving forward. It's almost as if it had to get to this point in order for everybody to actually be able to enthusiastically get on board and want to experience life in that way again, because there was this assumption that it's too hard to live like that. And then now people are, they're spending their whole day sitting at a desk or whatever, making, money so that they can pay for their house that they still have to care for, they still have to clean, they still have to, make food. And, they are now wishing that they could just make that their job, making the food, preparing the food, being with nature, taking care of their home.
Yeah.
Instead, you're paying someone else to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting predicament that we put ourselves in. It's kind of funny, actually. If you look at it long enough, it's like, wow, that's kind of silly. Why should we do that?
Well, we were curious, I guess. We wanted to try it. Like, look, you press a button and the like in the 50s, and they would show you these like space age, the future of homes is you push a button and this little slot opens up in the wall and there's your turkey,
Yeah.
And it's like, and everybody went, yeah, I want that. I work too hard, right? Yeah. But then once we saw the contrast, the difference, we went, wait a minute, I'm not connected anymore.
Yeah, and now everyone's like, man, I wish I had enough time to just be in the kitchen for 2 hours and bake a turkey slowly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe we do just need the contrast, and I've felt that a lot with I believe everything happens for a reason. And so, with even the drought, I've thought a lot about that with, we needed the contrast of not having enough water so that we could actually appreciate water.
Right. And get to the real, because for years and years and years and years, I've lived in California my whole life. It's been, conserve water, conserve water, conserve water. And now people are finally getting fed up with it because everybody's conserving water and nothing has changed and it's just gotten worse. And, so even like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show did a piece on, okay, well, let's really look at, California's water. 40% of it goes to alfalfa, and some other huge percent goes to almonds, and then some other huge percent goes to actually giving water to the livestock, and 4% is our consumption. So we should stop having water at our tables in restaurants unless we ask, and take shorter showers, and wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
Totally. And shipping it out of the country. I mean, California supplies so much food for the rest of the country. We're shipping water out. And so I feel like, if I look at it on a macro level, like it makes sense that we're in a drought and the rest of the country, like parts of the East Coast are getting drenched, and it's just an imbalance. It's because we're not each taking that personal responsibility for our own lives and our own communities and learning how to be more wise with what's around us and feed each other and not depend on California to feed us and depend on this place for this thing and that other country to give us bananas and let's try just being here.
That is a good plan.
Yeah.
So with permaculture and what you've learned from this tour, how do you see in places where people, like the places where we do ship everything to, how do you see people beginning to embrace that and, and say, we really don't need those bananas, and, we can grow these certain things here, and are there some really interesting ways for people to make it sustainable where they can grow their food year round and things like that in harsher climates?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I actually am just at the beginning. This permaculture tour taught me so much about what that is and the ways of living sustainably, and so I wouldn't have all the specific answers to that because I'm still learning so much, but the general idea is that you can, this man Stephen Brooks that we know is a permaculture expert, and he has some eco villages in Costa Rica, and he's has so many people living there together, and really examples of permaculture in action and food forests. And he says that even if there was only 10 inches of rain in California, we'd be fine. That's plenty of rain if we're actually using it well. If we're doing gray water, if we're doing water catchment, if everyone's doing water catchment. If everyone was actually taking responsibility and had their own garden and had water actually flowing in the most efficient way that it could and catching all of it and doing all of that, we would only need a third of what is happening this year in a drought,
Wow.
And so
that's really eye-opening.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I feel like, I don't know. I assume that in the winter everywhere gets some kind of water, but maybe that's not true. Maybe there's some places that get zero water. I'm not sure if that exists, but everyone has wells. If there is water, it's just about the efficient use of it. It's incredible. Water really is, this whole phrase "water is life" is not a joke. It's and so I think, I look at LA sometimes and these, it's like, well, there's not really meant to be a city in a desert. It's not really meant to be. And so we might have to rethink some of the ways that we're living, and some people might have to move, and some people, if I choose to eat locally, it means I have to not eat bananas. And am I willing to give up bananas? It's like it all comes down to are we willing to make a few sacrifices for our comfort that we've gotten so used to, our luxury that we've gotten so used to, and maybe some people will have to make small changes, and maybe some people have to make big changes, and maybe there's ways that we can support each other so that it can all work better. But that personal responsibility of just choosing, what can I do in my life that will make me a sustainable human? If everyone did that, we wouldn't actually probably need everyone to move out of those areas, because that would be enough of a change. But it's more like the areas that are doing fine, that have enough water, that people could be growing, they have good soil, they could be growing their food. If just those areas took personal responsibility, that would shift so much.
Right.
It would shift so much.
Well, I think there's a huge connection between Lucidity Festival and the festivals that are happening worldwide and coming to that realization, because people, they call them transformational festivals for a reason. And, a lot of, I think that what happens in that transformational process is a real knowing of the oneness that we're actually experiencing, instead of just having this idea of it and still being sort of secluded into your own little, like, oh no, everyone's looking at me type, perspective, to where it's like, hey, I love you. You're my sister. You're my brother. You begin to connect slowly, and eventually you really start to grow that knowing within you, and that leads to the ability to be able to make those kinds of decisions, like, can I live without a banana?
Right.
Because it's like, well, it's not just about me,
Right.
So in some ways, life really is just about you, and it is very important, because without you wouldn't. None of this would exist for you. Yeah. But in other ways, it's about finding what inspires you in the bigger picture. Yeah. So are you inspired by children? Are you inspired by, maybe the concepts of saving the earth? Mm-hmm. Or are you really inspired by awesome music? Yeah. And then you get turned on to this amazing movement.
Yeah. I'm constantly in awe of people who are like, I just love producing festivals, or I love producing events. I'm like, wow, that is so not something I'd be good at, and I'd probably get really stressed out, but I'm so glad you love doing that. Like, that's your passion, and some people are like, I would be so scared and not enjoy it at all to be on stage, and I'm like, I love it, and everyone has their piece. Some people are like, I just want to cook for people, I just want to build things, I want to, and so the more I just always think of it like a big puzzle, and the more each of us can really tune into what our puzzle piece is and set in, it frees up that spot for someone else. Like, they don't have to hold that piece. There's someone out there who's working a desk job who wishes he was a cook, and there's a cook out there that wishes that he was a builder, and there's a builder out there that wishes he was an artist, and there's an artist out there that wishes that, and if we could all be tuning into those pieces, it just fits. It would fit in this perfect way. And then, because we're all feeling the joy in our life, then it frees up so much space to then have ideas for how to make it better.
Right. And coming to a festival like this is a really good way for a lot of people to tune in.
Yeah.
I think some people come, for other purposes, like maybe they're doing some sort of work or volunteer work. They have no idea what they're getting into, and they really, experience an immense shift.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a big pot of lots of things.
It's like a reunion with family.
Yeah, and that, like what you're saying about just getting to know each other better and getting to feel the family that we are. We all are human beings. We're all in the same species, and there may be outer differences, there may be language differences, cultural differences, but when we can connect into that center where we're all family, right, so much can happen,
and we can experience it together. Whereas when you go out and you try to teach people things, then it's like you're telling them, don't do what they're doing, do this instead, and it's almost another form of indoctrination, even if it really has a great intent behind it. Whereas when you're learning in this kind of an environment, it's an experiential learning, so it's very different.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I want to create this with this person, I want to mold this with this person. Mm-hmm. And it's not like, oh, I should or shouldn't type thing.
Yeah, it's good. It's just kind of people drop in from wherever they're at and get to experience it.
Yes, wonderful. And I wanted to say, do you feel like, well, because the words sustainability and permaculture and self-reliance all kind of have the same buzz, and they get used in the same ways often. And what you were saying a little while ago about I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was about, being able to show up and start taking responsibility, each person. I'm feeling like the word self-reliance is really coming to mean that. Coming to mean being reliable on yourself to take that action and to start to focus your awareness on what can we do together rather than, how do I do this all by myself?
Yeah, like self-responsibility.
Yeah, exactly, because it includes all of us.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot lately about the microcosm and the macrocosm and just how I have experienced in my life being a fractal and that we're all fractal pieces of one reality. We're all these points of experience looking out at the reality that we're co-creating at every moment. And so in that sense, it's that old phrase, as within, so without, as without, so within. If I really take personal responsibility for that, then what I do is I, see or hear about war and I say, where's there war in myself? I haven't done enough work. If I look up and see chemtrails, I look in and say, where are there shortcuts? Where am I trying to have a shortcut to deflect what I've actually brought about?
Right.
And how am I polluting my own water?
How am I changing my own weather pattern?
Exactly. And so to really take responsibility on that level, that's something I have inquiry around for myself right now, because I can't really say the world should be different as long as that stuff exists in me. And because I see it in the world, it necessarily means it must exist in me. So what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to make my water clean, to make my food grow around me that I'm eating, to take that that self-responsibility,
right,
that self-reliance for my own choices, because that's the biggest impact I could possibly have.
It's huge what you're saying, because you're also talking about another shift that's taking place that I've been noticing from maybe 10 years ago, where someone would notice chemtrails in the sky and they would look, immediately at how it's wrong and how we need to change it and how to fight against it, rather than, what you're saying is that's a transmutation of our desire to be the change, and it's happening in a way that we're actually experiencing it, instead of just going, those words make sense to me, but this is how you do it. And you give everybody permission to do that when you begin to live that way, and they can see that it's actually coming from a loving place and not from a place of fear where I need to change this because otherwise I'm not saving the planet or whatever. That's kind of got a fear underlying, instead of just this love underlying, like, how do I love myself enough to help see this change out there? And it's okay to do that. It's really on the one hand, I think that the tendency to not do that is because it's a lot of work to work on ourselves. It's a lot of work to take that personal responsibility. It's like, wow, that means I gotta learn how to do stuff, and I gotta learn how to work in my emotional world, and I need to learn how to work with my mental body. Oh my God, my thoughts are running all over the place, and I actually do take shortcuts, and I actually do want more stuff, and and then I have to look at all that and really check in about that and really see what's going on. And I think for a lot of people that might feel really overwhelming. I feel very blessed that I've been given tools to know how to work with my emotions, and I've been given tools to know how to work with my mind, and not everyone has had that. And so I think that's a big part of it, is just affirming that to each other and teaching each other how to love ourselves better, and how to really do that inner work as well as we possibly can, because that's a big part of the as within, so without. Then we help each other go within, so that we can create the without that we want. Well, and it seems like such a big job to most people. Like you said, it is work, but it is the most fulfilling work anyone will ever do. And anybody who finally takes that step in that direction, sees that pretty quickly. And then you've got your, tribe, your family, your friends, the people around you to help keep you on track with that. So that's an amazing thing. But it seems like it's because we aren't brought up with those tools at this point, at least this generation. But that's another thing that's happening at these festivals. And, I want to get your perspective on that a little bit too. But more and more, there's children's villages. Right now we're doing this interview in the Mother's Nest, which is for the mothers of the festival. Everybody's being honored, everybody's being recognized, everybody's being seen and respected through love, not out of fear, but out of love. And I mean, is that something that you see in a lot of the festivals that you go to? And
I think more and more. I think I've been in this quote unquote transformational festival circuit, and so I do see a lot of that there. I think more and more. There's some festivals that have it dialed. They've got the children's area, they're taking care of the mamas, they've got things built in for that. Festivals like this where they end music at midnight, they give our bodies a chance to rest. I think that's really important. It's the health piece, having a commitment to health on all levels.
Right.
A commitment to no waste, a commitment to not having trash, a commitment to letting ourselves rest, all of that, and taking care of mothers. Some festivals are still catching up. Some festivals are like, oh, Kids Zone, and it's not as equipped, but they're figuring it out. And then there's a whole bunch of festivals that probably don't have anything like that. There's a lot of really big festivals that are happening that are totally just for people going and partying and whatnot. But I think there's even those festivals, I've noticed some of them are like having yoga workshops, and they're getting influenced by this transformational.
Well, it's a spiral. Yeah, it's a spiral. And when you think about it, if you were to talk to the people who created, say, this festival, I'm sure that most of them would tell you that there was a time in their life where a lot of this stuff was the furthest from their minds, and that it was all about just everybody coming, having a good time, dancing and staying up all night and drinking and all these things. But as they shifted and they were at the core of this creation, it began to spiral out. And so, it's great. The more people who are still in that frame of mind where they aren't thinking at all about how they consume and, never even heard the word self-reliant, that come for the music, they get, wrapped in and embraced by the love of these situations, and then they're the next generation of all of that. When I really tune in, I mean, that's kind of the big sigh of relief when I kind of get caught in like, well, where's our planet at? How are we going to change things? It's like, oh, but the young people are there and they're growing, and the old people who are holding the structures and really tightly and don't want to shift, they're getting older and older, and and change is inevitable, and light wants to be here. So it's I feel like that having the children, I mean, it's a mixed bag for sure. After living on land now for a while, I have mixed feelings about things like Burning Man and festivals and all these things. Like there's the beauty and there's the transformation, and then there's sometimes there's waste, and sometimes there's kind of an escapism in some people. Some people have, but that's why it's so important people like you are involved.
Yeah,
because it keeps that it keeps that frequency grounded within the festival, and it allows other people to really tap into it and help to make it bigger.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Like sometimes I can get it's easy for anyone, I think, to get really overwhelmed with a sense of urgency around where we're at and what needs to change so that we can have the best life possible. And like when you start tuning into how beautiful it could be, it's like, come on everyone already, like just wake up right now. It's so good. It could be so good right now. And yet I think everything it unfolds in its own time, and every step is important too. And it's a good thing for me to remind myself too that there's no push in a river. And so to just, that self-responsibility comes back in of like each moment, how much can I show up? How present can I be? How sustainable can I be? How much listening can I be? How much in service can I be oriented? And maybe that's as fast as it will move, and I'm not in alignment every moment. And so that probably slows things down. all of us, all of us are doing our own pace. All of us are doing what we can, and just to keep.
But it's not about being in alignment at every moment anyway, because we do have to honor that we're human. And, that's part of being human.
Yeah.
It's how you work through those, weather those storms that's important.
Yeah, right. It's like not about being in alignment every moment. It's about being aware of ourselves.
Right. Because if we were all perfect, we would just frighten children. We wouldn't inspire them,
Right.
They would just be like, I will never be like that. Oh, no.
Yeah, or we probably wouldn't be human if we were perfect.
Michelle's here with us. She's taking some photography. Do you have any questions about the permaculture aspects of this interview before I jump back into music a little bit?
It's okay to trim. Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, how do you see the project continuing in the future, and do you see there being any potential for what you've created with the team that you and David have assembled, for that to kind of continue to support other artists, and for funding to come in and to kind of continue that momentum of that model of artists connecting with community, connecting with actionable roots, seeds in the ground kind of movement.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we actually, David started a record label, Jumpsuit Records, which has since we've all decided to turn it into a collective, we're calling it. It's still called Jumpsuit Records for right now, but it's officially a collective. There's not a head. And David's sort of holding it all, but the idea is that all the artists that are in this collective are all committed to action days, to doing like action-based work, whether it's a workshop or a permaculture day or a herb walk or a water conservation, whatever it might be, but connecting in wherever we play, and as much as possible doing action-based work around the, channeling the energy from our shows into a local project. So we're all really committed. That's what unites Jumpsuit Records, is that we are all, as artists that are on the label, on the collective, that we're all committed to that. And then in that too, collaborating and trying to like cross our shows and do things together. And eventually we all do name your price music, and so the money that does come in, trying to have some of that go towards, eventually we'd like to have a fund for Jumpsuit Collective, so that could help have, really get the action days, so we can get funds to buy plants for different, action days that are happening, or buy materials or whatever might be needed in that community. And then the other piece is that because of this permaculture action tour that we did, every festival that we're playing at has asked to do an action day, and that's what happened with Lucidity. And Lucidity is special because they not only wanted an action day, but then through Ryan Rising, who did our action tour, and some other people, they also did a course, a 3-day permaculture course before this festival, and it actually sold out, which is awesome. And so it was full, and people are learning all of that good stuff, and so that's all been kind of a result, like a seed that was planted by the Permaculture Action Tour. And every festival we're doing one in Rise in Colorado. Joshua Tree Music Festival is having one.
They're having a permaculture action day?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I live there. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
That'll be an interesting one. Out here where nothing grows.
Yeah. Well,
but cactus.
It'll be a good example of like what can happen,
Yeah.
What can happen even in a desert. So, I'm excited for that too. And I think the idea is that we're not going to be at every festival, but the hope is that this is the beginning for Lucidity. Like, even if we're not at Lucidity next year, they will still have an action day. And that even if we're not at a Rise next year, they'll still have an action day, and that we can, either Ryan or Jasmine, who are on our crew, or maybe someone else who wants to kind of take the reins and help organize the action days for every festival, so that they can just continue, and we can start bringing them to other festivals, and it can just grow and grow and grow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the hope.
That sounds amazing. Well, and I love the idea that the action day also, is it the other way around? What inspires the workshops within the festival? The action day, or is the action day inspired by the workshop being part of the festival?
Which, the workshops here?
Yeah, like this festival, for instance, has this whole, the Lucid University, or Lucidity University, and it has a dedicated tent for the permaculture talks and panels and education and permaculture 101, etc. So is that inspired by the Action Day, or is it the other way around?
Well, I think that actually someone who's I'm pretty sure, I know Ryan is actually part of that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he started it. He might have started it. I think I've never been to Lucidity, but I think Lucid University is something that's happened every year. Mm-hmm. But then that particular tent, I think, is new as a result of the Permaculture Action Tour.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, because Ryan, he's an amazing human. He helped organize all the permaculture days of that whole tour, and he knows so much. And he's been at Envision, he's been at every festival, bringing permaculture to these festivals. So he's an amazing human. So we've gotten inspired. So it's hard to say what comes first, because maybe we got inspired by him and people like him, and that's why the tour happened, and then he's bringing it to the festivals. We're all just inspiring each other, basically.
Everyone's got their little piece of magic to bring into the mix. And just like you said, when people tap in and figure out what it is they're good at, you could be good at all kinds of things and still apply it to such things as permaculture. Just like just because you realized at some point, I'm supposed to share my music, I have a song, I have a voice, I have a gift to give to people, but little did you know that it would turn into being involved and being like a voice of something like a movement like that.
Yeah.
So that could be any kind of an artist, anybody who would have that same exact influence, be able to get involved and follow that calling.
And another, like, a side, I mean, you could call it a side hope. It wasn't like part of what we were trying to do, but something we noticed that was kind of happening was that, I think it's really, there's so much potential for artists to do a lot with the energy that comes towards them. And it's such a big body of people and so much energy that wants to go somewhere. And so, the idea of taking that energy and being like, hey guys, let's all go do this thing that will help everyone is really powerful. And so I guess for me, at least on that tour, I kind of let this little prayer go out that this might be noticed by artists much bigger than us eventually, or this idea, not even our tour in particular, but just the idea of using your platform to then create change would be picked up. And I know there's so many artists, like actors and different people, who are doing things like that, but it's a really powerful thing, and it only feels right, because it doesn't really make sense to just take all that energy and have it just go to me or to David, or in fact it's overwhelming. I would say it's pretty overwhelming to have all that energy just come. It feels a lot better to be like, okay guys, here's all this energy, go over here. It
seems to consume people, and they start to kind of lose their spark because it's too much. It's supposed to be transmuted and redirected. And
just the way it comes in, it needs to come in and be given out the same way. If it comes in from people, needs to be given to the earth.
Flow. And I like that, the way that this is happening, like you said, there are a lot of actors and people like that, musicians, who get involved in certain actions. But again, it's starting to move from, this vibration of fighting against something and trying to stop something to instead creating something, molding what's already there into a new creation. Basically.
There's already so much energy. Might as well put it somewhere really good. And somewhere that benefits them. I mean, it's a very direct. It was interesting, because at every show I felt myself really trying to get that point across. It's a show, so it's an evening. Not that many people are in the space to really listen to you talking that much, but just to try and, like, very concisely communicate that this is for you. Like, this is a garden that could grow food for you to eat. And so if you come help it, it'll help that thing happen that'll be helping you. And just, making that connection, I think making it really real for people that this is it's not just like I'm helping the world. It's like I'm helping myself.
Right.
Yeah, very directly.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing that's happening, because, like, I'm sure not too long ago even though festivals like these have been going on for a long time, not too long ago, would you be able to even find like vegan or vegetarian food or all organic or, anything like that? Now it's to the point where there's farmers markets, farm stands set up with fresh produce.
I love it.
I've never seen that anywhere at like a music festival or anything like that. Lucidity had that last year too, which was my first year here, and I was blown away by that.
I remember seeing that I think it was last year or the year before, because I've gone to Burning Man a few times too, and they had like a farmer's market, and I was like, really? That's
amazing.
Really fun.
That is amazing. Well, I want to ask you one more question about your music, and then before we wrap up, you can give me a little bit of information for people to get involved and be able to come and check you out too. But I guess the last question about your music would be, you already told me that you tap into the all that is essentially and allow it to flow. But what in particular inspires your music like right now? Does it have to do with this land that you're now on, or what's really coming through for you at this time?
Yeah, I feel like I think there's a couple parts. One is harmony, in the large sense of that word, as well as the sound sense of that word, and just playing with that. I recently started. I have a band, and so they all happen to be singers as well as musicians, and so we're playing with that, just like the beauty of harmony and hearing harmony, how it really impacts our bodies in such a beautiful way. But on even a larger level, I'm feeling really inspired to learn the songs of plants by listening to them and be the voice of these beings that don't speak in the same language as we do.
Wow.
And give them voice, and children as well, the ones who don't have the direct communication maybe in the same sense that we're used to as adults, talking about things or thinking about things, to then be a bridge for the elements and for nature, because it's so beautiful and they are saying so much to us.
They really are, and why not be able, it doesn't have to be restricted to shamanism where, a plant tells you how it can heal you. It can be, a broader message for people, and, that's awesome. Yay!
Yeah, so I'm working on slowing my life down as much as possible so I can get in the wavelength of nature.
Yes. So what is the band that you were mentioning?
The band is my solo project.
Okay.
It's now a band.
So
I still do play solo sometimes, but for festivals I've been doing this band, so we'll be playing tomorrow night here.
Nice.
And right now it's still Ayla Nereo is the name of the act. This whole mini tour we've been on, everyone in the band has been brainstorming on Ayla Nereo and the blanks, figuring out some kind of name. But that's one project, and then Wild Light is the other project. One word, Wild Light, and that's my project with the Polish ambassador. So it's my songs, my words and melodies put to his production and composition as dance songs.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And so if they want to find your music, is the best place to go aylanereo.com?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's AYLANEREO.com, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and then same with Wild Light?
Yeah, Wild Light, we don't have a website yet. It's pretty new. It's only a year old. So, year and a half, I guess. So, all the music also is on Bandcamp, which you can get through my website. You can also find Wild Light through my website or through the Polish Ambassador's website. It's also all on SoundCloud, so
Wonderful.
People can download it there. We give it all away for free. We give it as name your price, so people can, pay $3 for the album, or $20, or $0, or whatever works. We just want it out there.
Yes. Yeah, it's not necessarily, here, just have it for free and that's it. It's like how does it make you feel, and how do you want to be involved? And one way that you can be involved is by contributing. And if you don't have any money and you do want to hear the music, you can tell other people about it who would surely buy some and contribute, and it goes to such amazing causes.
Yeah, I've gotten really sweet notes from fans that are like, I feel so bad, I can only give you $3 right now. And I'm like, that's why we do that, is we want everyone to have it whatever you can afford. There's someone donated $50 for the album, so that balances out your $3,
right?
And everyone else's $3, and so it all works out in the end. I don't worry about that at all. It's working out
Don't
fine.
feel bad about it, folks. Just be grateful that option is there for you, because know in your heart that music's supposed to be coming to you.
Yeah.
And who knows why?
Yeah, we just want the medicine out there.
Yes, it doesn't matter. The medicine for the people.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Well, thank you so very much. Is there anything else that you want to share before we sign off?
Gosh, just be good to yourself and follow your heart.
Follow your heart. That is a message my mom gave to me, and I did not know what it meant until after she was gone. But I know I know she knows now that I know.
maybe she's given that one to me.
Yeah, maybe. It could very well be. It's almost her birthday, so she's usually around during those periods of time. Well, thank you so very much, and thank you everybody who's listening on Raw Living Radio, soon to be Pure Living Radio, which will be rebranding too. We love you and we thank you. We want you to have a magnificent week, and make sure you tune in again next week for more. And thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye.